What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the stream. It's Tuesday. We're getting tactical today. A little bit of a different episode today, because what we're going to be doing, instead of looking through the X1 lists and other cool lists from this past weekend, although we did have a lot of results this past weekend with the Battle Brothers Major and the Coventry GT 2 and 3 days, what we're going to be doing today, we can talk about those later if we want to, but this weekend, or this week I should say, through this weekend, is the World Championships of Warhammer. The first ever World Championships of Warhammer, which is very exciting. So we're going to get hype about that a little bit. We're going to talk about some spicy lists from the Warhammer World Championships. We're going to talk a little bit about the format of the event, what we can expect to see, and some of the exciting stuff that's happening over the course of the week. Thanks, everyone, for coming and joining. I really appreciate it. I want to throw a big thanks to everyone who came and hang out with me over the weekend at the Battle Brothers GT, or I guess Major. They call it the Battle Brothers GT, but it was Major level, so I don't know. Just pick one. You know what I'm saying? Just do one thing. Yeah, so the VODs are live right now. You can go check those out if you want to. It was a good time. I put a lot of new equipment to use for the first time, which I appreciated the opportunity to do. Big thanks to those guys for asking me to come down and stream the event, but we got some gimbal cameras, we got new audio equipment. It was very expensive, but man, did it all work perfectly. We had no issues, and I'm really happy with my stream setup. Obviously, lots of room for improvement and ways I can improve it in the future. We're constantly getting better at streaming events. The next one I'm going to be live on, exclamation point calendar in the chat if you want to see my calendar. There's also a link in the video description. The next one I'm going to be live on is next month. The Everwinter GT is the next one on my schedule, and I have just about one GT per month scheduled for the foreseeable future. That's not like a hard limit, by the way, chat. If you guys have GTs that you want me to go to, then please reach out to the TOs and ask them to get in touch with me, because I'd be happy to go check them out. But generally speaking, I've had about the TOs from about one event per month reach out and ask me to go. So that was good stuff. What is the breakdown of the question of the factions? Yeah, we can take a look at that. So Goonhammer actually has a lot of that information. Diving into the World Championship stuff, and we can take a quick peek at the Goonhammer data. They crunched all the numbers, so big shout out to those guys over there. And I can throw a link down in the chat for their data. I have it here. I guess we could just grab it from here. Here we go. All right, everybody, here is the Goonhammer article, and I'll just pin that so everybody can see it. I'm clipping. Like my audio's clipping? Oh, I'm sorry, chat. I can turn it down. Yeah, my audio's been reset because I took it all apart and then put it back together, so it might be a little bit, might be a little funky for now. Dominic Galliano. If you want me to be on stream, you're handsome and funny. Well, if you're playing a cool army, the chances of you being on stream are greatly increased. If you're playing boring garbage, then we'll get you in the finals when you get to the end. How's that? Curious about Custodes listed are running? Yeah, so there are a lot of Custodes, actually, interestingly. So here's the faction breakdown, as we just discussed. A bunch of Eldar and Space Marines. I think that is to be expected. Eldar, there's an argument for Chaos Space Marines to be the #1 faction. Eldar are, probably the one that people have more practice with. So not surprising that they're the #1. Space Marines is #2. They're always highly represented. There's a lot of sub-factions, obviously. That encapsulates all of the sub-factions. They do actually have a sub-faction breakdown as well. And I don't know. I guess these are... Yeah, it seems like it's kind of evenly distributed. There is one Deathwatch, which I appreciate, on Black Spear Task Force. Or 2 Deathwatch, I guess, yeah, according to this. But it looks like, generally speaking, like most people are in Black Templars or Blood Angels, and then we have some Dark Angels and the other chapters represented as well. But obviously, always going to see a lot of Space Marines, and that's not too surprising, especially since they got the most recent Codex, and it's very strong. And so Space Marines are popular and competitive and recent all that's going for them. Unfortunately, not the same for our poor Tyranids over here. Tyranids only at 3 players. But then from there, Chaos Space Marines at 20. I would honestly have expected more, but Chaos Space Marines are a little one-dimensional, so I'm not too surprised. And they've only been doing really well within the last couple of weeks. So, I mean, post-Data Slate. Whereas Eldari, the people who have been on Eldari have been on Eldari for the last, like, 6 months since the beginning of the edition. So they're probably very practiced with it. The people on Chaos Space Marines have probably only hopped over recently. So I'm not too surprised not to see too many people hop over to them. They're also, yeah, there's counterplay to them. A lot of Tau Empire at 11, World Eaters at 9. I think largely following Anthony Vanilla's success with the faction. World Eaters are in a weird spot. We're also seeing a kind of similar thing happen with Adeptus Custodes. 7 Adeptus Custodes, despite the fact that their win rate is in the pooper right now. But if World Eaters, and to a lesser extent, like chosen focused Chaos Space Marine lists are strong, Adeptus Custodes can function as counters to them. Now, to be fair, the opposite, like the Forge Fiend, more ranged focus Chaos Space Marine lists are disgustingly strong against Adeptus Custodes. So the profile matchups for Custodes are not quite there. Especially now that they've lost their defense against devastating damage from the Forge Fiends, but it is what it is. Then we got Matei Cesar. We streamed over the weekend. Casasi is the one Adeptus Mechanicus player. Shout out to him. Yeah, not many Orcs, actually. It feels like Orcs have sort of been supplanted by World Eaters. I would have put Orcs as maybe the top 4, top 5 faction. But only 3 Orc players, and it seems like World Eaters maybe just be doing the Orc thing, but more consistently, which is super interesting to see. So this mid section here is really surprising to me. You know, not many Tyranids, lots of World Eaters and Custodes, pretty wild. Yeah. Anyway, that's what's going on. Why are Marines highly represented at Worlds? So they have a couple things going for them. And actually we can dive into some lists here, chat. I bet if we so here's the BCP lineup for the lists. If we picked out a random list, I bet we could find some good examples here. Yeah, so Gladius Task Force is probably arguably the strongest detachment in Space Marines. One of the reasons Blood Angels is popular with the Gladius Task Force is that you have the Librarian Dreadnought. He can pick infantry squads up and teleport them across the table with Wings of Sanguinius. And then you have things like these big range squads, a bunch of Death Company Marines for melee punch. But then you have like these range squads like Inceptors, Devastators, and Aggressors that you can pick up and shunt across the table to shoot at people. And then the Fire Discipline Apothecary Biologus combo is incredibly strong. I have a whole video about it out that you can watch. The Biologus gives lethal hits to the unit. Fire Discipline gives sustained hits and critical 5s during Devastator Doctrine, which you can flip into with a stratagem. Then you use Storm of Fire on them for +1 AP to ignore cover. So if they're shooting the closest unit, which you can generate pretty easily if the Librarian Dreadnought sets them up, you can be re-rolling thanks to Oaths of Moment, sustained 5s, critical 5s, lethal plus sustained. So on a 5+, you're getting an additional hit that goes to the wound roll, and you're getting an automatic wound. And your AP to ignore cover. So the damage from this unit is absolutely ludicrous. They just fire bolters and grenades at people, and land raiders and tanks and knights melt. It's nuts from those guys. Having about 50% of your attacks add an additional automatic wound because you're doing it on 5s and rerolling everything that's not a 5 is such a dramatic increase in damage. It's crazy. So that combo is super strong, and then they have lots of mobility. They have advance and charge with Death Company thanks to Assault Doctrine. They can honor the chapter to get +1 to wound and +1 AP, and then they also have Devastators and other units that they can use to hop around with the Librarian Dreadnought, or the Inceptors just do it themselves. So they have good mobility. They have good utility units with these 4 deployers. They have lots of shooting power and some melee to back it up. The other really I think we have a couple examples over here. The other really popular composition for Space Marines is the Ironstorm. And I have one that I want to talk about, but it's a little bit funky. We'll see if we can find a regular one. We got Vanguard Spearheads going on. Oh, damn. Vanguard Spearhead also basically the same energy as Gladius Task Force. It gives you a little bit of a resilience buff. You're strong against return fire shooting, but then you can also you can pick up infantry squads and put them in reserve. So you can jump infantry squads around the sides of the table. Every list I click on is not Ironstorm. I think Ironstorm is the most widely played, and I haven't clicked on any of them. More Vanguard. Have I just missed them? Okay, I think I've just missed all of the Ironstorms. Well, we can dive into the list that I picked out to talk about, because Innes is one of the ones that I think we're gonna discuss. He's also on Blood Angels, but he has a little bit different of a list. So Ironstorm Spearhead is the other really powerful and popular archetype coming out of Space Marines right now. It gives you super duper strong interactions with your vehicles, so you're incentivized to take Tech Marines. Target Augury Web gives you lethal hits in an aura around the Tech Marine on vehicle units. If you've damaged the target, you can pay a CP to use Mercy's Weakness, and you give them sustained 1 and critical 5s. So it's literally the exact same combo. It's basically like the two big strong Space Marine detachments that most people are playing, which are Ironstorm and Gladius, have the same combo available to them, which is Oath of Moment for reroll hits, plus sustain and lethal on critical 5s. So one of them is with the Apothecary Biologus combo. The other one is with the Target Augury Web Mercy's Weakness combo. But they both have that available to them. This one requires a little bit more setup. You have to have this guy in range of the vehicle, have damaged the target, and then spend the CP. But once all that's set up, it puts your vehicles into doing absolutely insane damage. So this one's Blood Angels, which is interesting. It unlocks the characters, so you get Lamarties and a Death Company squad. You can use Mercy's Weakness on the Death Company squad just to give them sustain. So there's like a little bit of extra damage output there. But you also, the Sanguinor is good as a deterrent for incoming attackers. So he's good at fighting against other melee armies. He's good against things like orcs or World Eaters. They're going to push forward really aggressively. They're going to advance and charge, get up the table, engage your front line. The Sanguinor, his special ability, we can take a look at his datasheet because he's a weirdo. His special ability is that he can pop in out of reserve effectively as a heroic intervention. So while he's in reserve, if you end a charge engaging a Blood Angels unit, he can immediately reinforce into engagement range of your unit. It is the Miraculous Savior ability. At the end of your opponent's charge phase, if he's in reserve, you can select one enemy unit that made a charge move in that phase. He sets up within engagement range of that unit. So if your opponent's coming at you aggressively, he pops in. He has fights first, so he immediately swings, and he has 8 attacks at AP 3/2 damage. So he's not going to kill tanks, right? But he is going to kill a bunch of Khorne Berserkers or a bunch of, mega Orc Knobs or something like that, some of those aggressive melee units. So he can keep your vehicles clear of enemies. And then you have Ball Predators, which are very fast. They get assault on their weapons if they shoot at infantry, so they can advance and shoot. Obviously, the Death Company Marines are the same thing. A little bit slower than the Gladius Task Force, but they're just a really good aggressive unit. They get minus some damage from Lamarty, so they're not that easy to kill. Bunch of Inceptor Squads for utility. And then Whirlwinds. And interestingly, the piece of spice that we have from Ennis's list, and the reason why I want to talk about it, is that he's running Stormhawk Interceptors as his his damage outlet here, which is so wild. He's got them with Las Talons, Assault Cannons, and Typhoon Missile Launchers. We'll pull up the Stormhawk Interceptor datasheet momentarily here. And this is, normally you would see in this slot, you would see things like, I have another list that I picked out we can talk about right after this, which is Space Wolves, that's running Vindicators in this spot. But you'd also see Redemptor Dreadnoughts. You would see Gladiators. Almost all the Gladiator variants are really good in this attachment. Reapers are good for their Sustain 2 against infantry that you can generate. You can buff with Mercy's Weakness to critical 5s, so you get an extra 2 hits on 5s and 6s that you can then fish for devastating wounds with their Top Gun. Valiants are also good for, largely the same reason. All the Gladiator chassis are good, but Stormhawk Interceptors is really unique. So we can pull their data sheet up real quick. They get +1 to hit against flying units. That's pretty good into a lot of mirror matches. you know, a lot of people are running Inceptors, right? Almost all the Space Marine lists are running 2 to 3 Inceptor units. Oftentimes they're running things like Death Company or Assault Intercessors. So there's a lot of flying jump packers that's going to be valuable against. And it means that they can select targets that aren't necessarily Oath of Momented. And then it's also good in some other matchups. You know, there's things like World Eaters running Angron, right? Means you don't necessarily have to Oath him for these guys to be effective. Or Crisis Battlesuits are all flying, so he gets +1 to hit against all of those. And then they just have, for 155 points, very efficient access to anti-tank shooting. So you got a twin assault cannon, so it's a twin-linked 6-shot weapon. If you're triggering Mercy's weakness, you're getting a couple extra hits out of that on critical 5s, and then it's twin-linked, so you can reroll everything to get devastating wounds. He's also running Typhoon missile launchers, so they have 2 additional Strength 9 AP2 D6 damage shots, and a last Talon, which is another 2 Strength 10 AP3 D6 +1. So 4 total anti-tank shots and 6 assault cannon shots for 155 points on a flying unit. So they start the game in reserve. They're not hover. Or they can hover, I guess. So you can start them on the table. And then they're extremely fast and can sort of jump around wherever you need them to. Very interesting to see those guys on the table. I was wondering if they would see play. I wasn't sure if the damage output was good enough for the points value, especially with how kind of squishy they are. They're basically just a rhino, but they have smoke launchers, which is interesting. I didn't even realize that. That's very cool. Most Eldar units fly. Yeah, that's also good. That's fair too. Yeah. Yeah, I guess like it's less good against like Wraithguard and stuff, but you probably you're oathing them anyway most of the time. But most of the other Eldar units work it. Yeah. Flyers have old towering only if you don't hover them. If you hover them, then they use the new rules. It does say it can hover, chat. This is the index data sheet, so it might be outdated in the codex now. But it does say you can hover here. I guess we could look it up, but it looks like you can. That is weird. It doesn't look like a hovering vehicle. I wonder if that's a typo. It might be worth pulling that up in my codex. I'm gonna double check that just so that we're not misspeaking here. Where is my codex? Chat, what have I done with it? Okay, here we go. I'll just zip through all the data sheets in my super legit codex PDF here real quick. Okay, yeah, so he hovered in the index, I guess, but he no longer hovers in the codex. So that is an important call out. That would be weird. It's definitely a jet fighter. I don't know if it would be able to hover. So it can't come in turn 1, right? It's locked out until battle round 2 because it starts in strategic reserve. But then you get to deep strike it. You know, if you're going second, you could rapid ingress it, and then you could move it pretty fast and go knock out people's indirect fire, like you're saying. The chat is showing up twice. Oh, weird. That's bizarre. All right, let me fix that real quick. Yeah, I actually. Why is that happening? Maybe I don't know how to fix that, chat. Oh, there it is. Okay. Thanks for the call out. Yeah, I actually tried to replace the chat window I was using previously with another system. And it wasn't working before the stream. And so I was like, fuck it, whatever. But I guess it did work once I went live. Yeah, the weird thing about the chat window that I'm using right now is that if I have multiple YouTube events set, it always only takes the chat from the most recent event. So sometimes it just randomly turns off, which is getting problematic because I'm streaming more often on YouTube. So I have to engineer all of my YouTube overlays, which I'll do at some point in the not too distant future. Hey, Mate, how's it going? Nice to see you in chat. Thanks for It was nice to see you over the weekend. Hope you had fun. The other one can hover. Yeah, definitely that one can hover. That one actually has little hover engines on it, right? It has little VTOL engines because it's like a gunship. It's like an Apache. But this one is definitely an interceptor, so who knows? But anyway, yeah, it got removed, I guess, in the codex release. So no hovering on the Stormhawk interceptors, but that is interesting. Definitely cool to see them as like a anti-Eldar technology. Definitely makes sense for them. But it also works on, I mean, a lot of Space Marines are running more and more flying units, like as we're seeing. The anti-fly is really strong, and for 155 points for some pretty solid anti-tank shooting, especially, we should mention as well, there's 3 whirlwinds in this list too. So you have 3 chances to plink an enemy target for a damage, even if it's indirect. All you need is to get 1 hit from a whirlwind through, and then you turn on Mercy's weakness for the interceptor. And that can then give you critical 5 sustained hits on 4 like strength 9 and 10 missile launcher and las cannon shots, which is pretty scary if you're rolling and fishing for those. So I think for that 1 CP, you can probably get a Stormhawk interceptor to 1 shot, like most sort of like T9, T10 vehicles. T9 vehicles especially will go down to this thing. All right, we have another one to talk about. Let's grab it. So that we talked about Blood Angels. We can also talk about some Space Wolves. Jaime Paris is running Space Wolves. And he's also running an Ironstorm Spearhead. So again, all the same like combos are active, but we get access to Space Wolves units. And one thing I really like about these lists is that they're really utilizing the faction specific units to a pretty wide extent. So we're running kind of like the core of the army as all generic Space Marines, but you get the flavor from each of the individual Space Marine chapters, which makes the chapter selection pretty impactful. So, you know, we get things like the Death Company and the characters out of Blood Angels. In this one, we're getting Bjorn the Fell-Handed and Ragnar Blackmane. So Ragnar Blackmane is just an absolutely insane sort of counterpuncher. He gives his unit advance and charge, so you get a fast melee threat, which doesn't necessarily need to be in a Stormlance or Gladius Task Force detachment. He himself is absolutely insane. He has 1 billion attacks at high strength, high AP, 2 damage. We also get Bjorn the Fell-Handed, and I believe... So we're not running a Calidus, so it's a single Vect. He has a CP tax on his data sheet, but he himself is an incredibly... he's super duper tanky. He's -1 damage and a feel no pain. Plus he has... he's good in melee and has a las cannon. We can just pull his data sheet up real quick to take a look at him. Here he is. Excuse me. He's not -1 damage. He's half damage, yeah. So he's half damage plus a feel no pain. So he's stacking both of those buffs together, plus a base 2+ save. And then he has the once per game CP tax, which is sweet. And then he's got just a pretty solid melee attack and a twin las cannon, which is all good. So he's I mean, generally just a pretty good unit to have. I think he's one of the benefits of playing Space Wolves is you get access to this guy. Ragnar Blackmane's good melee threat. We have Adept of the Omnissiah Tech Marine, so he can zero out attack or damage from incoming attacks. The other Tech Marines running target augury webs, the lethal hits that we talked about previously. An Assault Intercessor Squad in an Impulsor, that's for Ragnar Blackmane to jump into. So they can disembark the Impulsor 3 inches and then advance and then charge. Their threat range out of the Impulsor is pretty fast. And then the foot assault intercessors, not the jump ones, but the foot guys are OC2, so they're very good at stealing objectives away. So that's a good, disruptive piece. Some Fenrisian Wolves for deploy teleport homers, 3 units of Inceptors. We're seeing more and more people moving to a big unit of 6 as like sort of a problem solver. You can, if your opponent is running like a lot of really scary backline artillery, if they don't screen super heavily, an Inceptor squad can just pop in and kill one of those things, automatically. And if you have ways to keep them alive or to move them after the fact, you can create a situation where those Inceptors potentially do that more than once, and that gets super dangerous. A lot of times people will put their big heavy like punch in the sort of in the middle or front of their deployment zone. And if they open their back line, you create a situation where you can put the Inceptors so far back that they actually aren't in danger. They're blocked by your own back line of sight blockers. If the back edge of your table isn't screened out, and because they advance and shoot with assault, they're fast enough that they can then reposition themselves to like take that table space the next turn. So they're super disruptive in the back line if you let them get there. Looks like 2 scout squads. These are the Vindicators we were talking about. So we have all that Mercy's weakness combo plus 3 whirlwinds to unlock it. So we're going to try to ping people with the whirlwinds. And then the Vindicators, we have a base 2+ save, which is good, alongside Armor of Contempt. So you can have a 2+ save, reduced to a 1+ save, potentially Smokescreen on top of that, and Adept of the Omnissiah to blank one of those incoming attacks after you failed the save. So these Vindicators are like a 0-up save and cover thanks to the combination of the Armor of Contempt and cover. Potentially like lethal hitting on 5s with a huge damage gunshot. And sustained hits thanks to Mercy's weakness. Lots of big damage out of the Vindicators. It's sad that we've lost the land speeder, but it is what it is. But those are basically going to form the front line to protect the whirlwinds, and we're counterpunching with the assault intercessors using those utilities and kind of threatening the backline with whirlwinds and inceptors. So pretty standard stuff. One day Iron Hands will get more than Iron Father's unique chapter specific unit. Yeah, it's tough. It's a tough time for the Codex compliant factions because you're competing with Ultramarines, right? And like 90% of the time, if you're going to be playing a compliant chapter, you're just going to take Ultramarines because they've got the best stuff. They've got Marneus Calgar and Rubu de Gilliman. Like you can't really beat that, honestly, right? So I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of some of the stuff that Space Marines can do. I think it's important to talk about at least one of the Vanguard Spearhead lists, so people don't get like super duper surprised by them, because these lists are pretty wild. It's very different from the other styles of Space Marines. It's much more sort of finesse oriented. They're much more about redeploying and mobility, less about raw damage, which is what Gladius Task Force and the Ironstorm Spearhead are going to be doing. So this is John Lennon's list. Ultra Memes is the name, which I appreciate. That's a good strong name for an Ultramarine list. It's running an Apothecary Biologus with Blade Driven Deep. So that's an enhancement that gives his unit Infiltrator. So he joins into an aggressor squad, and it's going to work differently than the Gladius aggressor squad because it's much more aggressive, but it's less. It does less damage because it doesn't get the sustained 5s. It doesn't have access to Fire Discipline or Storm of Fire. But what you can do is you can put the Apothecary Biologus alongside Marneus Calgar, because Marneus Calgar is a chapter master. He can attach to a unit alongside the Apothecary. They can both go in the aggressor squad, and Marneus Calgar will get the benefit of Blade Driven Deep. So the entire unit, it's a huge unit of 10 models, 10 aggressor models, or Gravis armored models, that can infiltrate up in your opponent's phase. It can then advance and charge. So if you go first, the Alpha Strike is real, right? They're just going to be like coming right out of the deployment zone. Obviously, there's some situations where you have to kind of couch hit. If you're playing against aggressive melee, you might not be able to do that because if they just come into you, you might just die. But the detachment has some counterplay to melee. They have a very strange stratagem, and honestly, this stratagem might be worth a video. I've been kind of mulling it over because the weirdness of this is it's one of the most bizarre stratagems that we've seen in a long time. It's basically like a Tactica Obliqua from 8th and 9th edition, if you remember how terrifying that stratagem was. But it is calculated feint. It targets an infantry unit when they are declared as a charged target. If they are a forward operator, so a Phobos or Scout, they move 6 inches. Otherwise, they move d6 inches. So it's a slightly different version of like a squad tactics from the Gladius task force, where instead of moving when your opponent moves up to you, you move when you're declared as a charge target. What this can do is cause your opponent's charge to fail. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if they become, thanks to this stratagem, an ineligible charge target, your opponent is able to redeclare the charge. However, you can create a situation such that it is difficult or impossible for your opponent to successfully complete the charge, but you are still an eligible charge target. The only requirement for the unit to be declared as a charge target is that they are within 12 inches of the charging unit. That's it. That's literally the only requirement. So as long as you stay, 11.99999 inches away from the charger, they can't redeclare their target, even if there's no possible roll that they make on 2d6 that gets them into range. Because, for example, there could be walls intervening, there could be models intervening, they could have declared a multi-charge, and one of those units moved in such a way that they can now no longer engage both of the targets. There's like so many weird corner cases where this can just destroy your opponent's entire turn, where they're setting up to get a charge, you move back, you push behind a wall, and wall screen them out from completing the charge successfully, and suddenly their unit's just sitting there doing nothing, and then they're going to die next turn. So that is the defense that Vanguard Spearhead has against this kind of against sort of aggressive melee, so they can use that on Calgar's unit. The other thing that they have is a big Centurion Devastator squad, so 6 Centurion Devastators and Uriel Ventress. So Uriel Ventress is going to pick one of these infantry units, probably the Centurion Devastators, and give them Deep Strike in the battle formation step. Now, there's some weird interactions with that as well. Obviously, you could just Deep Strike normally, which is great, but the other thing is that they have a stratagem called Guerrilla Tactics, where for 1 CP at the end of your opponent's turn, you can put that unit into strategic reserves. Thanks to this is and honestly, I actually was not aware of this when I made my video about the World Championships FAQ. Thanks to the World Championships FAQ, if you are in strategic reserve and are gonna be placed on the table in the first battle round, you can do so if you have Deep Strike. And I don't know why it works this way. I could not tell you. But what it means is that you could go second, give the Deep Strike ability to the Centurion Devastator squad, deploy them on the table, and then bottom of your opponent's first turn, spend a CP and put them in reserve and then drop them back down immediately. So back in your reinforcement step. So they can uppy downy like instantly. Each of them has a twin-linked las cannon plus a D3 damage missile launcher. So you're firing, 6 las cannons. If you shoot your oath target, they're full rerolls. They're probably going to blow up a tank or something when they come back down. And then your opponent has to deal with a Centurion Devastator squad and an Aggressor squad that are all up in their face. And they are probably -1 to hit and probably like the equivalent of -2 AP thanks to cover and that other thing, Armor of Contempt. Yeah, it's super powerful. There's very little to no damage improvement in this detachment, unlike Ironstorm and Gladius Task Force. But it's so maneuverable that you're able to deliver these big bricks of heavy infantry, super lethal heavy infantry wherever you want them to. We also have some Eradicator squads that can sort of do the same thing. A bunch of big Inceptor squads. The interesting thing as well with the Inceptor squads is that you can they have Deep Strike built in innately. So you can deploy them on the table and you can do that same combo without having to target them with Uriel Ventress. You can put them into strategic reserve bottom of the first battle round, and then they Deep Strike back in. And because they arrive using the Deep Strike ability, they can then use their Meteoric Descent to come in 3 inches away from enemies. So the whole thing we were talking about previously, where these 6-man Inceptor squads are so good at mucking up your backline, could be happening to you on the bottom of the first turn, which is a little scary. And then a bunch of scout squads and a Calidus assassin for utility. So this one's much more infantry focused. Again, way more focused on reserve abilities and mobility. Less about just doing raw damage, but the amount of mobility available to Vanguard Spearhead is always is crazy. Obviously, the weird thing about Vanguard Spearhead is that it's the ostensibly Phobos themed detachment, but is hot garbage for Phobos units, and instead is incredibly strong for aggressors and Centurions. But that is always the case every single time they print any sort of Raven Guard style infiltrating ability. It's always better on the heavy infantry than it is on the Phobos stuff. Flavor fail, but you know, it is what it is. They have the +1 to hit and +1 AP. That is true. You're not wrong, chap. Yeah. They have Strike from the Shadows, right? It is, yeah, Strike from the Shadows. You have to target somebody 12 inches away, so it's good with the las cannons, less good with the aggressor teams, but yeah, that is strong with the Devastator squad. That's fair. I shouldn't say that there's no damage increasers, because there is one, and you can give them precision in melee. It's very exciting. Any way to check the list itself? Yeah, these are all available on Best Coast pairings. For sure. Vanguard can rapid ingress Inceptors bottom of turn 1. Well, they can't rapid ingress them, right? Because you have to you're just arriving normally, because your opponent has to have had a turn in order for the deep strike ability to trigger, right? Because you can't guerrilla tactics until the end of your opponent's turn. So if your opponent is going second, you haven't had a chance to rapid ingress yet. It only works if you go second, unless I'm missing something, obviously. But it's still really strong. Like you can you know, most of the time, right? Like you're protected against going first or second. If you go first, you can blow your opponent out with the aggressor team. If you go second, you're deep striking them on the bottom of 2, on bottom of 1. So like you're sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Anyway, so that's a lot of Space Marine talk. I feel like we've talked ourselves out of Space Marines. Who wants to look at some other factions? Because I've picked out some other ones that we can talk about. We can keep on the Art of War train, because we just talked about John Lennon's list. We got Richard Sigler's list over here. Unfaz Holy Ghost, coming back to haunt you. I mostly picked this one out because it's kind of a classic, like, Breacher. What's the word? Fish of Fury list, like from 5th edition. This is like 3 editions later, we still have this list being good. And it was pretty good in 9th edition too. The 9th edition Tau Codex was okay for Breacher teams. But we're not playing Farsight. We're not playing these like mass Crisis Battlesuit lists. I think a lot of people have like Crisis Battlesuit, you know, anti-Crisis Battlesuit tech in their back pocket. So instead we're running just mass Fire Warriors. We do have one Cold Star Commander with the Exemplar of the Kalyan. I think you have to take that guy. He's really strong. And we do have, I believe, 2 units of Crisis. Yeah, so we have a little unit with a mix of Fusion and Ion, a big unit for the guy to join. I like that this is getting a little bit more common, a single airbursting fragmentation projector in that unit to allow it to resolve attacks so that you can strike and fade even if you have no targets. So you're never in a situation where you move up and your opponent phantasms or they die, and then you're like, well, I can't strike and fade, and now my Crisis team's going to die. They will just declare a shot with their airbursting fragmentation projector on some random idiot and then run away, which I kind of like. You only lose 1 Cyclic of the Ion Blaster, which, to be honest, you probably didn't need anyway. This unit overkills most of the things it shoots at. And then we have 2 Pathfinder teams, 2 Tetras, And we need those Pathfinder teams because we're rocking 4 Breacher teams, chat. 4 Breacher teams in Devilfish. All in. All in on Breachers. The nice thing about the Breachers, they can disembark after the Devilfish advance. So the unit itself is very fast because the Devilfish can be going potentially up to 18 inches, and then you're disembarking a Breacher team. They're OC2, so they're grabbing objectives, and they hit really hard for their weight class. They're it's a base 3+ ballistic skill. Nobody knows why. It might be a typo, but that means when they're guided, they go to a 2+ ballistic skill. They hit on 2s, potentially rerolling if you're shooting with Tetras, and then if they target somebody touching an objective, doesn't matter who has the objective, doesn't matter how many of them is on the objective, they just get reroll hits. Or reroll wounds, excuse me. So they could be hitting on 2s, sustain 2 if you're in Kauyon, wounding on whatever full rerolls. So the damage from these individual teams is really is impressive, and their points value is pretty good, right? 165 for all those shots with all that benefit. Just solid, and they're very good at the one thing that Tau is not good at is holding down primary. I'm not going to say that they're going to command primary, right? They're not going to take an objective and hold it for a while. But what they will do is push up, take an objective, and steal them from your opponent and drop your opponent's primary score. Tau are already so good at scoring secondaries because they have so many utility units, right? The Tetras, because what's the word? You can, because guiding doesn't prevent shooting eligibility, the Tetras can move up into an objective or the center of the table or your opponent's deployment zone. They can drop a teleport homer or cleanse and then guide one of your units. So you have these Tetras, you have all these Devilfish, all these units that can perform actions that are going to be right up in the middle of the table. Your secondary score is going to be pretty strong, pretty consistently. The downside is your primary score, and the Breacher teams can solve that by just stealing all your opponent's objectives over and over again, and then doing a bunch of damage when they do so. So, very cool. Very nice to see Tau move away from just endless crisis suits, just triple crisis suits every time. Yeah. Are we gonna look at Drukhari? We can look at some Drukhari. Yeah. After we go through the list I picked out, we can look at some Drukhari. All right. What else do we got? I'll just go down the list here. We have some Grey Knights to talk about. This is Aaron Kelman. Oh, this is not correct. Well, he's the first one, so here we go. A little bit of Grey Knights. The interesting thing about this is that we're sort of seeing the direction, the Grey Knights being taken in the direction that we saw Death Guard and some of the Chaos sub-factions go, where they are plugging the gaps of the faction with allied units. So obviously Grey Knights, like, they don't have good shooting, they don't have good armor cracking, they have great mobility, they're pretty survivable, but the issue obviously is killing stuff. They're running a Nemesis Dread Knight Grandmaster with Inescapable Wrath, plus a Sigil of Exigence Librarian, so he can try to Vortex of Doom people multiple times over the course of the game. A Tech Marine to buff the Grandmaster. 1 Terminator squad, 2 Strike squads, some Razorbacks for the Strike squads to go into and trigger wound rerolls. A big Land Raider, which is cool, adds a little bit of las cannon shooting. Some Interceptors and Purgators Interceptors are a good utility unit to score tacticals. Purgation squad, has a bunch of guns. 4 Incinerators is pretty good for infantry clearing. But then we're just rocking 3 Armature Warglaives. So, again, like, the problem is cracking big heavy armor stuff. And the Armature Warglaives are just like, don't worry, boss. I got a Thermal Spear. I got a pretty good melee attack. I'll do my best. So interesting. I don't know necessarily if the Armatures are like the be all end all of the if they've saved the faction of Grey Knights, but Grey Knights are in the hands of a good player very scary, and with the ability to actually sort of target down particularly strong enemy armor, they might be very dangerous. All right, we also have some Custodes. I would be remiss if I did not talk about some Custodes, chat, because there's so many Custodes. Oh shit, my phone. Ooh. Oh no, what have I done? Ah. All right. Well, get fucked, phone. It's all tangled up in my chair now. There's so many Custodes at this event, and it's wild. This one's pretty interesting. It's running he called it Alaris, which is, I think, very appropriate because it's running 2 5-model Alaris bricks, which is very cool. There's no shield captains in them, but we do have a Custodian Warden squad to attach a Blade Champion, so they get their once per game advance and charge. We could also put that on Custodian Guards, I guess, as well, which are a little bit scarier. So that's probably up to the player. This is Alex Matheson, by the way. That's probably up to the player at the start of the game. 1 unit of Prosecutors, 2 Gladius Grav Tanks for some shooting, an Eversor Assassin, and interestingly, Lord Inquisitor Kyria Draxus. So let's take a Draxus real quick. She can attach into battle line units, so she can also go into the Custodian Guard squad. So if we are putting... oh, that's a Vindicare. If we are putting... Where is her data sheet? If we are putting... What am I trying to say? The Blade Champion and the Wardens, then she can go in with the Custodian Guards. She gives you +1 to hit against Xenos. So we already talked about some anti-Eldar tech. She's an additional anti-Eldar tech. It only works if you are suffering a hit penalty, right? Because the most of the stuff is going to be hitting on 2s regardless. But then she can also protect her unit with from. She gives them a situational 18-inch lone operative effect. So she's kind of like a Thousand Sun Sorcerer in that way. She's also she's pretty good at shooting. She's got an indirect fire gun with sustain too, which is kind of sweet. And a Power Fist. So not too bad. Yeah, definitely I think I can see her inside the Custodian Guard squad. So you have the Wardens are already tough to kill because they have their 4+ field no pain potentially. And then she can just make the Guardians, they can shoot at 24 and then become untargetable outside 18 as long as you roll a 2+. So they're good at sort of reactive. They're immune to a lot of the reactive fire there. And then they get wound rerolls on their own shooting, plus they can double tap once per game. So they're kind of a good shooting battery that can be situationally untargetable, which is sweet tech. Oh, I guess that is true, yeah. The other one's Devastating Wounds and get wound rerolls if you're in the Custodian Guard squad. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't think about the wound rerolls from the Custodians themselves. That's actually kind of sweet. I like the indirect fire just because she's always shooting, right? She's constantly doing damage. But if she does have something with an 18, then that can be really dangerous. Yeah, that's cool technology, chat. I like it. I like it. Very sweet. Man, it's cool that we're still sort of digging into the allied units for this random tech. Wound rerolls on that lady seems pretty solid. Basically, regardless of what you're shooting at. Love it. All right. What else we got? There is a full Khorne demon list. This is Brad Townsend. At least I believe it is full Khorne demons. So that's cool. I think we've talked about lists like this similarly, and I don't know if it's any good, chat. But it's definitely cool. It's also named his list Blood, Bloody Blood, which I appreciate. That is very appropriate for the style of list that we're running. 2 Rand Masters on Blood Thrones. And as we've talked about in the past, these guys are actually, their ability stacks because it's an attack buff that's not an aura. It targets a single enemy unit and you get a bonus against them. But because it's not an aura, the ability stacks on top of itself. So you potentially with 2 of them, you can be giving +2 strength, AP, and damage against a single target. And then we're running a bunch of Blood Crushers. So with all that stuff lined up, the Blood Crushers, you have 7 model units with the Blood Crushers plus the Skullmaster. The Skullmaster gives them, I believe, a buff on their Juggernaut attacks. Am I crazy about that? I think that's where we're at. Yeah, it gives them devastating wounds on their Juggernaut attacks. So they themselves are going to be they on a 4+ deal D3 mortal wounds. So they average a mortal wound per Juggernaut. Did I just scroll right past it like an idiot? Yeah. So they average like it's 2 mortal wounds per success on average. Half of them succeed, and it's per model in the unit, not per model in engagement range. So the entire unit of 7 models is probably doing 7 mortal wounds on the charge. Then they also have devastating wounds in their bladed horns, and they have 4 of those each. So you're probably getting another like 0.5 or so devastating wounds out of each of the blood crushers. So without allowing any saves, you're probably in for like 10 damage before these guys actually make attacks. And their attacks can be strength 7, AP 4 damage. And that gets even better, obviously, on the Juggernaut too, because the Juggernaut gets the benefit of the Rendmaster also. So pretty nutty damage output from the Blood Crushers. You can rapid ingress them, you can advance and charge them. Their target selection's pretty good. We've got big units of Fleshhounds. The big unit of 10 Fleshhounds is really good, benefiting from the Rendmaster buff, because they will just go absolutely ham. They're probably the most efficient Khorne attacks in the Codex. I don't know why I said probably. I think they straight up are. For 14 points, you get 3 attacks that are pretty solid already. 2 more, so you get two big bricks of those that you can use to trade for objectives. 1 small unit of 5 for utility. 3 skull cannons for just a backline shooter who's kind of hard to kill. Really good against sort of like regular medium infantry, Space Marine infantry. And then Blood Crushers will just hopefully blood crush through everything. Pretty nutty. Interesting to see how far this one goes. I don't know if the all aggression full Khorne Demons is the future, but I kind of hope it is, because this list is like super cool. Can activate Kyria Draxus' ability in reserve and walk them on to protect from spinners. Oh, that is interesting. Because it is an ability, so it still triggers when you're in reserve. But it is your command phase. I guess like you could ingress that unit pretty well, right? Because you activate it your command phase, wait until your opponent's turn, and then ingress them. And then the next turn you're moving up and shooting and fighting. All right. Moving on. Brian Sape is playing Thousand Suns. I mostly just want to talk about Thousand Suns, so I picked a Thousand Suns list. It is kind of standard stuff, but we are focusing on sorcerers today. And this is, to be fair, not the only list of this type that's in the tournament. There's several. It's also called What Am I Doing Here? I appreciate that. There are several Thousand Suns lists that are focusing really heavily on the regular sorcerers. The shooting meta, I think, is going to be real with every so we just looked at 2 consecutive Space Marine lists. More than 2? 3? It was at least 2 consecutive Space Marine lists with 3 whirlwinds in them. Probably every single one of those Eldar lists is going to be having 1 to 2 whirlwinds, if not the full 3. So having and as we just saw with the Kyria Draxus list, right? You've got anti-shooting support. So the sorcerers giving you an 18-inch lone operative bubble is super duper strong. The downside of the sorcerers is that they are not good at shooting people because their gun is only range 12. So that is a little problematic for those guys. We do have 2 Infernal Masters, 2 Infernal Masters. 1 with the Crystal to teleport around, one with the Arcane Vortex. Magnus, 1 Disc Exalted, 1 Ahriman on a disc. And then just a bunch of Rubric Marines for those guys to join into. What is this? 6 units of 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, 6 units of 5 Rubric Marines. 2 Rhinos to deliver some of those dudes. That's definitely helps to deliver the Sorcerers, specifically. Although I guess if you're in a Rhino, I don't know if you really need a Sorcerer, to be fair. But at least you can deliver their little gun, and they're still immune to the backline shooting. You have to actually come up and fight them, which definitely helps quite a bit. The Sorcerers also only being 1 Cabal point means that putting them in a transport, you don't lose too much, too. So that is a benefit as well. Interesting to see how the triple Sorcerer builds go, because that indirect fire is a real problem for Thousand Suns, and these guys definitely feel like they have a little bit of protection against them. They also go absolutely ham if they're getting rerolls in their gun, because if their gun can fish for 6s, they're sustained 3. So if you have the extra Cabal points to duplicate the reroll stratagem, and you can do it on Magnus and the Sorcerer, or just multiple Sorcerers, then they can fish for huge sustained hits, then fish for devastating wounds. And they probably get like 4 or 5 damage out of a single Sorcerer pretty consistently. Plus all the flamers and all the floor point pistols on the unit as well. Thousand Stone Sorcerers are weird. I don't know. Their gun is like so wild. It's so wildly spiky, but it's so short range and hard to shoot with. It's crazy. Oh my god. I think Flyers should get a 20% reduction in points. You'd have to wait for turn 2 to come in. Oh, maybe. The issue is that they're so strong when they do come in. I think it's fine. And then most of the Flyers can just hover mode anyway, so they don't even have to start in reserve. I think they're okay. All right. Last but certainly not least, we can talk about some Necrons. I know somebody's going to ask about Necrons, so we're going to talk about Necrons real quick. This is Gonzalo de la Moneda. And I mostly picked it because it has the Catan shot of the Nightbringer in it, which is kind of cool. Normally, I mean, we see the Transcendent Catan. Sometimes we see the shard of the Void Dragon to fight against vehicle lists. But today we're just rocking the good old-fashioned Nightbringer. Let me pick up his sheet real quick here, so we can have a peek at him. Here he is. So he has an interesting ability, end of fight phase. He can pull mortal wounds from people, which is that's actually pretty okay if he like, if he fails to kill stuff, which is a little bit sad, I guess. But if he fails to kill stuff, he can potentially finish them off at the end of the fight phase. But also he's just a big strong gun, right? He's a strength 12 AP2, D6 plus 3 damage. At range, he also can swing 14 times at strength 8 AP2 2 damage to kill infantry. He's got a D6 damage weapon with devastating and melee as well. So he's just a big beat stick. You can use him to clean up for people moving into Lich Guard. So we have double Lich Guard bricks and a monolith in this list. So sort of 4 big huge problems that you have to solve. Hexmark Destroyer with Veil of Darkness. I kind of like that, actually. He can pick up and drop somewhere by himself, so he can like Deep Strike and then later pick up and then Deep Strike again. That's pretty cool. Plus a Sovereign Coronal Hexmark Destroyer to give everybody +1 to hit. Mostly he's probably going to be stapled to the back of the Monolith. A Hyper Material Ablator Overlord and another Overlord and 2 Technomancers with 2 units of Crypto Thralls to jump into the Lich Guard bricks. So we got 2 fully kitted out Lich Guard bricks with all the fixins. Some utility in Tomb Blades and individual Locust Destroyers, and then the big Monolith to port in and be a real problem. Now the Monolith, it does transport infantry around, so you can use it to jump the Lich Guard up the table. You can even put the Lich Guard into reserve. They are not too large to strategic reserve, I don't believe, because they are 230, 290, 350. Yeah, they're only like 400 points. So you could have one of them in strategic reserve, drop the Monolith, and then port them to the Monolith. They have to stand there for a turn, but very little is killing a Lich Guard unit that gets set up wherever you want it to be. If your opponent comes in to try to deal with that, you have the Night Lord, the Nightbringer, excuse me, that can sort of clean that up. So, that alongside these Hexmark Destroyers that are hopping around the table, I kind of like the, it has decent mobility. It's not totally hosed by disruptive effects, things like, Binding Tendrils or Suppression, that will prevent the Lich Guard from moving up. The Monolith just solves that issue. You're like, your Lich Guard will never move again. It's been Night Spinnered every turn. And you're just like, it's okay. I'll just Deep Strike this one with the Monolith drop. Or drop the Monolith and pull the slowed unit up the table, too. It's pretty sweet. The sweep profile is pretty good into 2-1 stuff. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, 14 2 damage attacks. Like most of the time you see those sweep profiles at, it's like double attacks or like double +2 attacks or something, but it's only 1 damage. This just coming out of the gate with a big 14-2 damage. That's a little scary. Plus, like, randomly devastating with a d6 damage weapon is also pretty solid with his regular swing too. Downside is he's much easier to kill than the regular Khorne Shard. But he's got those sweet abs, though. So, you know, that's pretty good. Archon Steve, thanks for popping in, dude. I appreciate you agreeing to stream over the weekend. That was a fun game. It was cool to see Drukhari. Drukhari on the table, round 1. We'll probably talk about some Drukhari momentarily here. Because my picks for lists, I think I'm running dry. And so I know there were some requests of lists to talk about. Frank asking to check out Kevin Zollinger. With Black Templars. There's a lot of Righteous Crusaders. Oh, this one's running Ironstorm Spearhead today, though. I think that we have looked at... We've looked at similar lists. Maybe not exactly this list. I feel like we've looked at specifically Kevin's list in the past. This the Austrian Highway list name looks very familiar to me. So we might have actually covered him on this in the show previously. This one's pretty cool. So this time we're running the Black Templar specific vehicles, so they get multi-meltas on top in addition to the regular weapons. And we're going to be trying to abuse the fact that Master of Machine War gives advance and shoot or fall back and shoot to vehicles within range, within the aura of the Tech Marine. And all of those vehicle synergies are going to work off the firing deck of an Impulsor. So we're not running the lethal hit aura, which definitely feels like it could be good in this attachment. But we do have fallback and shoot with the Master of Machine War. We're running 4 units of Impulsors with, it looks like Hellblasters, right? 2 Hellblasters. Who goes into these? Is there a battle line? Oh, I guess just the Tech Marines themselves. All right, fair enough. All right, I gotcha. So one Tech Marine just has to embark on an Impulsor because nobody else can join them. Yeah. Unless Impulsors can't embark scouts now, right? That would be pretty wild. Never say never though, because scouts are Primaris now. So who knows what their new transport capacity looks like? We'll just have to look at them in the codex. Impulsor. Tacticus or Phobos infantry. Yeah, we can't, no scouts for them. So I guess the Tech Marines have to start embarked, which is kind of cute. That means that they don't get the +1 to hit on turn 1, but they also, you don't need the fall back and shoot aura until you actually go to shoot. So you can just keep that guy inside the transport and then disembark him if you need him to. And then I guess while we're here, we can look at their range profile because they're getting a multi-melta on top of the missile array, which is another strength 8 AP2 D6 shot gun. And then on top of that, they also have 2 Stormbolters. So they're shooting 8 Stormbolter shots probably, plus either a bunch of 1 or 2 damage shots or 1 D6 damage shot, plus 2 more D6 damage shots from the Top Gun multi-melta for 85 points. It's pretty solid. And then on top of that, you can also have the Hellblaster squad be benefiting from all that, those synergies. So we can give the Hellblasters like 5 up sustain hits, for example, with All Mercy's weakness. And then we have 3 Gladiator Reapers, again, benefiting from multi-meltas on top. With the twin heavy onslaught Gatling cannons, those guys get 2 sustain against infantry. So if you're triggering that on 5s, then they're generating ridiculous numbers of attacks against infantry. 2 Predator Annihilators, 3 Predator Destructors for anti-tank shooting, and then a bunch of Scouts for utility. That's a cool list. That's very spicy. The Mass Impulsors is definitely pretty cool. That's a very efficient profile for 85, especially if you have good stuff to drop into it. And the Tech Marines shooting at the top aren't even that bad, right? Because they can be firing... they can fire... I guess you have to pick one weapon they're equipped with to shoot at the top, right? So they probably aren't firing the grab pistol, but they do get 3 Schwarzbolter shots off the top too, which is kind of sweet. But the cool thing about firing the grab pistol, if you need the anti-vehicle shot, is that because it's a vehicle, they can fire pistols and normal weapons. Unlike normal models, which have to pick, vehicles can fire both, so you could give them a pistol weapon to shoot with, which is kind of cool. Lists are from Best Coast Bearings, yeah. It's in the video description. We were looking for some Drukhari, speaking of which. Sebastian Kipling, Robert Kimpton are 2 Drukhari players. One's from Australia, one's from Austria. Both in Group 1. That's not going to confuse anyone. They put all the Drukhari into Group 1. That feels like some bias there, chat. Am I right? Like, come on. And then obviously they're both from the same country. Let's take a look at this one. This is Robert Kimpton. How in the world did I qualify for this? Running an Art of Pain Archon and Lilith Hesperex. Plus 2 units of Capelite Warriors. 2 units of Rax. And a unit of Witches. 10 Witches for Lilith Hesperex to go into. A lot of times they drop into a Raider, and then you rapid ingress the Raider, and then disembark the next turn, and go, like, burn an objective or something with them. It feels a little expensive. It's like 250 to 65 points for all the stuff put together, but you know, in Drukhari, you'll pay what you'll take what you can get, I think. You could also do it with a Venom, I think, because you could split them into 2 units of 5 Witches, and then we use one to hold objectives or to ingress, or just strategic reserve, and then have the other unit in the Venom and do it with the Venom, which saves 10 points, but that gets you an extra unit, I guess. 2 Chronos, 1 unit, 2 units of Mandrakes, 3 units of Mandrakes. They got Uppy, Downy, and a Devastating Wounds gun, which is all very good. 3 Ravagers, some Reavers. We saw the Reavers over the weekend in that the stream game with Archon Steve. Those Reavers were awesome. Just the ability to just jump out and grab an objective on turn 1, basically anywhere on the table, is crazy. Their movement is insane. And they can advance and perform actions if they have Heat Lances equipped, because they are assault weapons. 3 units of Scourges. 2 sets of Dark Lances, 1 unit of Haywire Blasters for the anti-vehicle. Pretty standard Drukhari stuff. Let's see if we have another one. Whoa, this one's like all... Who needs Archons? Archons have anti-synergy with the faction because they have to start in Transports. Get rid of those idiots. Put 2 Succubi in here. Let's go. Lilith and a Succubus and a regular Succubus. The standard Succubus is Blood Dancer, which I'm going to have to look up. That's what I don't know. +1 armor penetration, +2 armor penetration if they are empowered. And the Succubus herself, what does she start at? Strength 3, anti-infantry 3, AP 2. She gives everybody sustain 1 and fights first when you're empowered. And she goes to AP 4 when she's empowered, but it's only 1 damage. That's not very exciting. AP 4 is nice, I guess. Especially because it's against everything, but man. That, that 1 damage is sad. If that lady was 2 damage, she'd see play. 1 damage is like, okay. You convert all your attacks, you get like 2 Space Marines on average. Let's see. 2 units of Capelite Warriors, 10 each, 1 unit of 10 Witches, a bunch of Venoms to split them all into. Very nice. Love that. 3 Chronos, Mandrakes, Triple Scourges, Void Raven Bombers. Let's go. We're killing all the Space Marines today. So these guys have Dark Science, right? Or taking Void Lances. Interesting. Wow. Okay. So the Void Lance is basically like a Strength 14 Dark Lance. AP 4 D6 plus 2 damage. Plus they have their once per game bomb, so they can do a little bit of mortal wounds the turn after they come in, because they obviously can't do it the turn they deep strike on. And they're firing 2 anti-tank shots, plus probably D3 more 3 damage shots. So that's pretty solid, especially because it blasts against like Gravis Armored Infantry. Then they have a lot of anti-tank shooting. The downside, I think, is the survivability for this unit. It's stealthy, but it's only T9 with a 4+ save. So like even light light small arms fire is going to damage it. For 200 points, it's a lot. But you're always going to get the Alpha Strike on people because they can see over everything and they can Deep Strike. So you're never going to be in a situation where they get killed before they get to shoot you. They'll probably come in and blow something up before your opponent gets a chance to kill them. And if you're flooding the board with Venoms full of infantry, your opponent's anti-tank or anti-armor shooting can be so overloaded that they don't have a chance to deal with either the Venoms or the Void Ravens. So that's probably workable. It actually seems like it's pretty good. If you have a go turn, top of 2 or bottom of 2, and you're just like, you put 3 Void Ravens on the table, you laser beam a vehicle down, and you just put like 5 Venoms, right? 5 Venoms. Oh, gosh. What have I done? 5 Venoms in your opponent's face and been like, all right, we're going to lock all the objectives if you don't do anything. And they're like, well, I could kill 3 Venoms, or I could kill 2 Void Ravens, but I can't kill both. And whatever's left is going to start disembarking idiots on me. I don't know. That's probably pretty good. Look at Votann if there's anything interesting. We can probably swing a little bit of Votann, I imagine. It seemed like there is a lot of Votann in the like the event total. There's 8 leagues of Votann, so just under World Eaters, 5th most popular faction. So there's probably going to be a lot. I don't know how much is going to be like groundbreaking within Votann. That's one thing I think is interesting about these lists is, you know, we are picking out the coolest lists to look at.
Deathwatch list review, if any representation.
Damned Legion, I got your back, buddy. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. We do have some Deathwatch lists to talk about. Yeah, but I mean, most of these lists are relatively cookie cutter because it is the World Championships, right? People are going to be taking like, they're locking down what they're taking, and there's a little bit of like secret technology in there, right? Like Storm Talon gunships is cool. Some of the other stuff that we've talked about is cool. Like Kyria Draxus tech, I haven't seen that before. That's really sweet, but not a lot of it is like wildly groundbreaking. All right, let's look at Deathwatch here, chat. 2 people running Deathwatch today, or this week, I should say, not literally today. Joel Wilson and Matt Soloris running Deathwatch. Mom said we've chosen at home. Just taking Deathwatch Thunder Hammers. Guys, we can advance in charge if we put Watchmasters in them. Let's go. That's funny. So running Black Spear Task Force. So we get Tome of the Ectoclades for the double Osa moment. Now, I believe that there is one piece of technology that Deathwatch have that is unique to them. And that is that, if I remember correctly, Tome of the Ectoclades is not a Oath of Moment effect. Yeah. After you've selected an enemy unit using Oath of Moment ability in your command phase, you can use the Tome of the Ectoclades, select a second enemy unit. Until the start of your next command phase, you can reroll the hit roll and wound roll. So, Black Spear Task Force gets with Tome of the Ectoclades, gets a once per game enhanced version of the entire First Company detachment ability as an enhancement. So the First Company detachment ability is when you choose an Oath of Moment target, you can choose to also reroll the wound roll once per game. The Tome of the Ectoclade says, oh, reroll whatever you want on someone, and also you get a regular Oath of Moment target. And also you get the Black Spear Task Force buffs. If you almost ever wanted to play the veteran task, the First Company Task Force, you're just playing Black Spear. It's better. Oh, poor, what is that one called? First Company Spearhead or whatever? I don't remember. It's very bad. But it is cool. Tome of the Ectoclades, you get to retain old Oaths of Moment for just a little bit longer until it gets nerfed. The Judiciary's got the Thief of Secrets, so +1 strength, AP, and damage. You go up to 2 if you kill someone, and he has fights first, so that's pretty good. There's a non-zero chance that happens. 2 units of Deathwatch veterans, 1 Impulsor, 2 Rhinos to keep the Deathwatch veterans inside, 1 Blade Guard veteran squad to put inside the Impulsor with the that dude, the Judiciary. 2 units of Inceptors. Again, we got a big, huge 6-man Inceptor squad, plus a Centurion Devastator squad. We can drop those guys on the table with the Teleportarium. So those guys can do uppy downies. So literally like the same technology we're just talking about with the Vanguard Spearhead. These guys also have. So Blackwatch is just like they're just gifting out their technology to other detachments now that the Space Marine Codex is live. And then a Gladius Assassin for the utility. Those Watchmasters will both jump into the Deathwatch Veteran unit. Think of them fall back and charge and advance, or fall back and advance and operate normally. They do have a CP tax effect, but I believe only works when they're on the battlefield. So they can't do it when they're in transports. If the Watchmasters, if on the battlefield, it also requires them to be your warlord, so only one of them gets it. But it's nice to have, especially if they're like charging into somebody and they're like Armor of Contempt. You can be like, get wrecked. But then the threat range from the Impulsors is pretty long, or out of the Rhinos, excuse me, is pretty long, because you have a disembark plus a move plus an advance, so you can get pretty far. And then turn on whatever abilities you need with their detachment ability, sustained or lethal, whatever you're attacking. It's pretty cool. I like it. Deathwatch are the least represented? No, that's not true. Not even close. Adeptus Mechanicus, Imperial Knights, both below Deathwatch. Deathwatch tied with a bunch of, like, I don't know, pretty popular factions. Only 2 Chaos Demons is nuts. 4 Chaos Demons. We can take a look at Matt Soloros's army. Shenanigans and Shaboinery? I don't even know what that word is. Is that a real word? If I Google that, am I going to get demonetized? Felonious levels of tomfoolery. Shaboinery? Is it shaboingery? Shaboingery. I'm using that. That's a good word. Matthew Soloros, I appreciate you. That's a solid word. I'm going to use that in the future. That's being added right to my word of the day calendar. This one's got a Phobos Librarian, so we probably have a Spectrus kill team. Oh, no, we don't. We just have Infiltrators. That's fair. The Phobos Librarian's super good on the Infiltrators. He gives them lone operative and stealth. And so you can't deep strike near him. He's stopping you from shooting him. They're just like uninteractable for the most part, unless you have rapid ingress and run up into him. We've also got 2 Watchmasters, one with Tome of the Eclipse, one with Thief, 2 units of Veterans. These are only 5 apiece. 2 Inceptor squads, a big Proteus kill team. 2 big Proteus kill teams. In fact, 2 Whirlwinds and a Gladius Assassin. All right. Seems like pretty classic. That's like a classic Proteus or Deathwatch list. Nice. I like it. Somebody was asking about Liam Vissel's list. Take a look at him. Interesting that he's chosen right after his win at Coventry. He just swapped over to a different Chaos subfaction. Liam Vissel is a outside of Harlequins. He loves Harlequins, but man, he is a Chaos super fan. Because I know he used to play like mixed Tzeentch back in the day, back in 8th and 9th edition. That was his jam. Deathguard is a hammer and a meta filled with nails. So he's rocking 3 Biologist Putrefires, 2 Foul Blight Spawns, 1, 2, 3, 4 units of Plague Marines, 3 Deathguard Rhinos, 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, a bunch of Nurglings and War Dogs. Yeah, so the big benefit that Deathguard have with the War Dogs, right, is that most of Deathguard's aura abilities don't require you to be a Deathguard in order to buff them. So getting up close to enemies reduces their toughness. It can reduce their armor save or reduce their hit rolls, or their weapon skill, ballistic skill characteristic. And the War Dog Brigands benefit from all of that. So either they're harder to kill, they do more damage, or they're higher AP. It's all good. The Nurglings can stack a -1 to hit a non-monster vehicle enemies. Again, also buffs the Brigands. So the Brigands are a good solid range platform that also benefit pretty significantly from all of the Deathguard auras. What you're probably doing, if I would hazard a guess, is getting +1 AP. Because the +1 AP makes the Plague Marines absolutely lethal from the +1 AP from the Contagion aura. You're getting the Biologus Putrefires are throwing their Blight Grenade is like a D6 plus 3 shot blast weapon. Is that the correct number of shots that I'm quoting to you? It's Strength 5, AP 1, 2 damage lethal, I believe. And then so it goes to AP 2, and this is just a Plague Marine squad. What am I doing with my life? Here he is. Just D6. All right, not D6 plus 3. Just D6. My bad. It goes to kind of like occasionally strength 6. It's like situationally +1 strength with the -1 toughness from your opponent. Depends on what the toughness versus strength comparison is. It gets 5 up lethal hits. And it goes to AP2. Once they get into melee, the whole unit is attacking a gabillion times between all of the Plague Knives and the heavy Plague weapons, and it all is benefiting from like situationally +1 strength and +1 AP and lethal 5s. So the damage from these units, and they can get sustain on top of that, I believe. Yeah, when if you are next to an effective objective marker, you can get sustained 2. And because you are criticaling on 5s, thanks to the Putrefier, you can. It's the Gladius Task Force. It's the Gladius Task Force combo again. We're doing another Fire Discipline combo, but it's on Instant Death Card. So you have 3 units of like between 5 and 10 Plague Marines that can potentially be shooting like all their guns with +1 AP, potentially +1 strength, 5 up criticals and shooting. And then once they get into melee, even if they're attacking with their regular ass melee weapons, those go to the Plague Marines. I think start at AP1. Oh no, the regular Plague Knights just start at AP0. But they're three-ish attacks. They go to AP1 thanks to the Contagion, sustain 2 and lethal on 5s. So you roll, on average 1 5, 1 miss, and 2 hits. The 5 lethals adds 2 hits back into your pool, and you roll 2 more strength, like the equivalent of almost 5 AP1 attacks. So even that's from the regular dudes without heavy melee weapons. And then the heavy melee weapon guys, you get 3 attacks from them, so 12 total from the unit. Strength 8, AP2, 2 damage. So, I mean, again, you're rolling 12 attacks. You probably get 4 lethals in there from the 4 dudes with the heavy weapon in melee. Those turn into 8 additional hits plus 4 automatic wounds that turn into AP3 saves. The 8 additional hits, you're probably wounding on 5s, maybe 4s. You're forcing another 2 or 3, again, AP3, 2 damage saves. And that's not even counting the regular damage that the weapon's doing. So they, on most targets, like the heavy melee weapons alone are good for like 6 to 8 damage. And then you get all your other attacks in there as well. Plus they've already shot you, and all that, like most of that stuff, obviously not the sustain, but most of that stuff works on their shooting attack as well. So they're this like super powerful, super aggressive unit once they're buffed by the Putrefier. You get 3 of them in Rhinos. It looks like one in Rhino is carrying 2 units of 5. And you can potentially also be attaching the Foul Blight Spawn to the unit, who also adds another ranged attack. He's got a 2 damage Flamer, which again can benefit from the +1 AP, and then he also gives Fight First, so it's even difficult to come back into them on the swing back. Yeah, so it's like the Rhinos, the Rhinos with Plague Marines are just like absolute powerhouses. The Plague Marines do ridiculous damage for their points value with the Putrefier attached, and then you have good artillery sitting in the back, hard to kill Plague Scrawlers. They got good anti-tank guns. They have just shooting lethal hit mortars all day. And then behind that, you have 3 Wardog Brigands that are just like pumping shots into people. And Wardog Brigands with +1 AP, suddenly that Demon Breast Spear doesn't care so much about cover, doesn't care so much about Armor of Contempt. Like AP4 is really good, but a lot of times you're saving on 5s. You get that -1 saving throw from the Contagion Aura in there, and suddenly they're saving on 6s. That Demon Breath Spear converts like 20% more often, and that's just a ton of anti-tank damage on top of it. Yeah, I mean, I totally understand this list. I mean, it seems Death Guard pretty good. That's all I have to say about that. I love my vocal kitty. Yeah, she was, I think I woke her up yesterday when I got home. I got home about midnight last night, and she was sort of like dazed off. And I walked into the room, and she freaked out. It took her like 15 minutes to wake up. She wasn't really sure what was going on, I'm pretty sure. And then she got very, very excited. So I'm pretty sure she got worn out yesterday. She's a little bit less what's the word? She's less vocal today. She's just been napping all day. All right. Leagues of Votann. A lot of people wanted to talk about Votann. And then we'll see where we're at. So there's a bunch of Votann players. We got 8 Votann players. I don't know how much we're going to get, how much insight we're going to get from Votann currently. Jeremy Atkinson over here. He's got a YouTube link in his list. Do we dare? I appreciate that. Very good. Thank you, Jeremy. He's got a Brokier Iron Master, 2 calls, one with Long Lists, one with Appraising Glare. 3 units of Hearthkin Warriors. 3 units of Hearthkin Warriors. Are we spamming Sagittors today, chat? Take your bets. Oh, yeah, we are. 5 Sagittors. So we're going to split them into a bunch of units. 1 unit of Thunderkin, 2 units of Indir Hearthguard, 2 units of Hernkin Pioneers. So we got 2 big, huge Hearthguard units, deep striking, 1 unit of Brokier Thunderkin, probably coming out of Strategic Reserve. Yeah, it's 750 points in reserve, and then you have 5 Sagittors with 25 Hearthkin Warriors in them, and you get another unit of 5 to sit in the back line and hold your backline objective that are going to be scouting up the table and going and shooting. So that is pretty solid. Not so much ranged push, but it's extremely difficult to sort of take objectives from this. This list is so aggressive because it's putting 6 Hernkin Pioneers in the middle of the table, plus all the Sagittors, that all scout moves. So it's just covering the table in Votann. So your ability to screen out the Deep Strikers round 2 is compressed, right? You're pushed into your own deployment zone. Because if you move up the table aggressively, they're just going to shoot you to death. So you have to screen them. If they go first, right, they're going to push you up in your deployment zone. You have to try to screen them, so you're feeding units into the middle of the table that the Sagittors are just then blitzing to death. And eventually they're going to open a hole. All those Hearthguard are going to jump in the table, and you're just going to vaporize. It seems very difficult to deal with, especially going first. Second, against some armies, like you can probably kill enough Sagittors that it might be fine. But you're still having to deal with so many units popping out of the transports and jumping down. Just the raw math of Votann beating you. See what Colin McDade is playing. He's usually on Astra Militarum, so that's interesting. We have a Grim Demeanor in Einhir Champion. Plus a call with appraising glare. 3 units of Hearthkin Warriors. 3 Sagittors this time. 18 Brokier Thunderkin. Oh my god. We're getting thunderous today, chat. Oh, here she is. What's up, girl? You want to come visit? Come on up. No? Sorry, chat. She was gonna come give everybody a cameo. No? You woken up? Yeah? Come here. Oh, there you are. Hi, baby. Oh, there she is. Oh, say hello to chat. You have a lot of fans. Yeah? Aw. This is a cute cat, chat. Look at how cute this cat is. Hello. Yes, that's you. You want to sit down? You want to sit down and talk about Leagues of Votann? How do you feel about Brokier Thunderkin, Inky? Brokier Thinkykin. All right. Anyway, 18 Brokier Thunderkin. That's a lot. Plus, whoa, plus 6. What is this? 15 Hernkin Pioneers. Holy crap! That's so many. The Hernkin Pioneers can jump off the table and strategic reserve themselves, which is kind of cute. So they can give themselves some mobility to jump around and sort of like support the Thunderkin, reserving onto the table. They can like push enemies back from screening out. But you can also just, you know, again, like kill all of their chaff screening units to ensure that you deliver all the Hearthguard and the Thunderkin, which I think is probably a lot of what's happening right there. And the other benefit of scout moves, obviously, is that you get to take advantage of midboard terrain. So you can move these big bricks up into areas where they're not really in grave danger on the first battle round. Hi, baby. I'm gonna see if you'll hang out on camera for a little bit. Let me move my camera over. This cool gimbal I have. Look at this cat. Hi, cat. She's so fancy. All right, chats. Anything else that we want to talk about? Those are some cool Leagues of Votann lists. I'm excited that we got a look at those. Man, this cat just fucking loves scritches. I guess Tyranids, right? Some people ask for Tyranids. There's literally only 3 Tyranid lists. Kaiu's playing Tyranids, Sveinung is playing Tyranids, and Colin Watts is playing Tyranids. I believe all of them are Invasion Fleet. Oh no, this is Vanguard. All right, we got a Vanguard to talk about. Invasion Fleet's boring, so we're gonna try to focus on Vanguard Onslaught. Although we can talk about the Invasion Fleets really quick. This one is Kaiu's list. He is running Old One Eye and Carnifexes, plus a unit of 10 Genestealers, which is pretty cute. So this one is a little bit different. 2 units of 3 Raveners for the uppy downies. Plus Exocrines and other stuff that I can't read because my cat's in the way. Let me fix my camera here, chat. Hello. We already talked about Drukhari, chat. And we already talked about Custodes. Talked about all that stuff. There's a lot of Custodes. A lot of people on Custodes right now. I think, I don't know. I think I said it before, but I think that people are, oh my god, I'm so bad at this game. I think that people are sort of preparing for, like, the dominance of World Eaters, or at least, like, World Eaters and aggressive Chaos Space Marine armies, and Custodes, you know, they still fight first. Doesn't matter if you have, you know, if your defensive stuff is expensive and you don't have defense against mortal or devastating wounds, if your opponent just dies before they attack you, it doesn't matter. So that's pretty good. All right, let's talk about this cool Vanguard Onslaught list. Colin Watts over here. With Death Leaper, a Neuro Tyrant with Hunting Grounds, which mucks up people's strategic reserves, and a Neuro Node for redeploys. 2 units of Gargoyles, 2 Lictors, 3 Neuro Lictors. Oh, the Raveners, chat! Oh, we're in for the Raveners. For some reason, these are not Vanguard Invaders. Oh my god, this phone. My phone cord's all wrapped around my chair right now. My phone's gonna have to live on the ground for a while. But they are still infantry, and a lot of the stuff benefits infantry. Plus a melee bioweapon warrior unit, 1 unit of Venom Thropes to give everybody stealth, and 18 Von Ryan's Leapers. Hot diggity damn. Yeah, I think we watched this list do pretty well a couple weeks ago. Oh, there's me. There you are. Just sort of mass of this like similar 1 damage profile. And it's so aggressive, right? Because the Raveners are relatively fast by themselves. The Warriors advance in charge. The Von Ryan's Leapers forward deploy and advance in charge. So you just dominate the middle of the table. Nothing infiltrates as hard as this army does. Like literally nothing. If you go second against it, like you can only screen out so much of the battlefield, right? Because you can put one unit of dudes across the middle, and then Von Ryan's Leapers are going to be basically everywhere else. They're going to jump in. They're move 10 plus advance and charge. They're going to kill like all your chaff in the middle, all your screening stuff, and suddenly like you're just getting rapid ingress on by Raveners. You're just getting charged by tiered melee weapon warriors. There's not a lot of staying power. Like everything in the army is really easy to kill, but not the lone operatives, I guess. You can just keep lictors and neurolictors and all the objectives and pin your opponent into their deployment zone for the entire game. And if just like continuously funnel -1 or a lone operative onto the bioweapon warriors, because we have a winged Tyranid prime for them, so they don't get indirect fired and then they just like sort of close things out. That's a sick list, chat. I hope that it does well going second. That's the one little bit of danger. The benefit is that with Nero Node, you can take the Von Ryan's Leapers and put them into strategic reserve if you go second, and then you can like be rapid ingressing them and being annoying with them. But it seems so much more difficult than just going first and pinning your opponent in their deployment zone for the entire game. I don't know how often you need to get fights first on multiple units, chat, right? You know what I mean? Like, I think Custodes are probably fine with one fight first. I don't know if they need multiple. Multiple feels like overkill. There's very few lists that charge you, outside of like World Eaters or Orcs or whatever, that charge you with so much stuff. And so much stuff, like, of which none of it you can survive one hit as a Custodes player. It's not like I don't know if that was like a wildly transformative change. All right, chat. That's a cool list. I kind of want to give this list a try. I'm playing the triple melee warrior list on Thursday. I don't have high hopes, honestly. But we'll see how it goes. I might have to try like the mass heavy infantry, melee heavy infantry list. Because it looks fun, to be fair. It looks kind of cool. So, I like that. Yeah. Do we have anything else we want to look at before we sign off? I think that's a pretty good encapsulation of the event. A lot of expect to see a lot of Marine versus Eldar matchups, obviously, because those are literally about 50% of the field. Those two armies, but I am excited for the results that come in. There's actually kind of a lot of top people running Genestealer cults. There's 5 Genestealer cults. Alex McDougall and TJ Lanigan both on GSC. Although I think TJ Lanigan was like on record as saying that he kind of isn't really a fan of them. He was on stream last weekend and I think didn't have a very good weekend. So we'll see if he's able to compete still with that army. GG's, chat. I don't know what my schedule looks like for the rest of the week. So tomorrow, I don't know what we're going to be doing, but over on the Purple channel, I believe that we just had a Darktide update, so I would be remiss if we didn't do some Darktide. Thursday, like I said, we're going to be rocking some more Tyranids on stream. Friday, I believe we will also have some gameplay. Over the weekend, we should get coverage of the World Championships. I am planning on doing a sort of watch party. So we'll probably be live over on the Purple channel and just hang out and watch the stream and talk shit and we do a little bit of sort of like co-commentary kind of deal. If you're interested in that, please come follow me, twitch.tv/TacticalTortoise. And for sure, I will be doing some content on the new announcements that come out and the final results of the World Championships. I think it's going to be a sweet wagon to 40k, chat. I'm super psyched. This is like really, to my knowledge, the first time that anything like this has been run by GW. And I'm like super excited about it. I think that the premise of the event is really cool. The format is very cool. It's a pod format that moves into a double elimination, or it's a double elimination pod format that moves into another sort of like 3-round event to finally crown a top winner, which is super sweet. And then also they have country standings as well. The country standings are going to be a little bit awkward because I think there's a lot of countries that only have one player. And I think they take the scores from the top 5, but it is what it is. I think that's cool. The pods should be fun though. Yeah, I'm excited to see what comes out of it. So I know coverage, I believe on Twitch is starting on this weekend. I don't know. Let me see if I have their streaming schedule open right here. Because I know the other events are getting coverage, I think, earlier on in the weekend, but I can't remember. Yes, Inky. You're so cute. But anyway, thanks everyone for hanging out with me. I think this is a fun discussion. Lots of interesting and cool lists rocking out. I appreciate the people who go to an event that's like this competitive and this high stakes, and they're just like, you know what I'm doing? I'm playing jank. That stakes balls, and I approve. So thanks everyone for watching. I think we'll go ahead and wrap things up there. And I'll see you on stream later on this week. So remember, keep it classy, folks. Have happy wargaming, and enjoy the World Championship coverage. Cheers, everyone.